Usually, when we look at a clock on the wall, there's this expectation of absolute authority, right? Like the secondhand ticks, you hear that sharp little clack. And we just implicitly agree that the universe has moved forward by one discrete unit.
Yeah, it's a very Newtonian comfort.
Exactly, a comfort. We build our entire civilization, our engineering, our whole concept of cause and effect around that synchronization.
Yeah. The idea of a universal clock ticking away in the background, just completely indifferent to what we're actually doing.
But the thing is, the moment you start applying any real stress to that framework, whether you're looking at relativistic speeds or quantum states, or even just the biology of human perception, that universal clock doesn't just lose its accuracy, it completely disintegrates.
It shatters. And I mean, it shatters in ways that are deeply uncomfortable for the human brain to process.
And that disintegration is exactly where I want to start our deep dive today. Because we have this incredible source material that synthesizes quantum mechanics, relativity, biology, and incredibly ancient Hindu cosmology. And it all ultimately argues that time isn't a fundamental property of the universe at all.
Right. The core premise here is that time is an artifact. It's an illusion.
Illusion created entirely by the size of the eye looking at it, which, sounds crazy. What if the Big Bang isn't just history, but is happening right now inside your own body? That's the mission today. So if you're listening to this, I want you to mentally take off your watch, leave the ticking clock behind, because by the end of this deep dive, the way you experience the next 5 minutes of your life is going to be fundamentally changed.
I love that setup. And to really test this idea, to break time, we have to start at the absolute extreme of the macro scale.
Deep space.
Deep space. Let's construct a thought experiment based on the sources. Imagine we have a hypothetical, infinitely powerful optical instrument. We'll call it Telescope X.
Okay, Telescope X, I'm with you.
So you have it set up, and you focus it on a massive star exactly 100,000 light years away from Earth. You're watching, and suddenly the star goes supernova. A complete structural collapse and massive explosion.
Right. But because we're dealing with the absolute speed limit of the universe, the speed of light, we had to factor in look-back time. That event didn't just happen right now.
Exactly. Space is quite literally a time machine. The photons hitting the lens of Telescope X have been traveling through the interstellar medium for 100,000 years. You are observing an event deeply embedded in the past.
You're watching a rerun. A really, really old rerun. But here is the paradox that the source material uses to highlight the fragility of this linear time model. Imagine you could magically instantly step backward, away from the star, by exactly 1,000 light years.
Okay, so you are now 101,000 light years away.
Right, and you look through Telescope X again. What do you see?
Well, if you could somehow instantly translate your coordinates to that new position, you are now catching photons that were emitted 1,000 years prior to the supernova event you just watched.
The star is whole again. It's perfectly healthy, undergoing normal fusion, and it still has an entire millennium left before it collapses. So just by stepping backward, just by shifting our spatial position, we've completely overwritten history.
But this immediately forces us into the fundamental tension of general relativity.
Because I'm cheating. Right. If I travel that distance in 1 minute, haven't I just traveled 100,000 times faster than light?
You have. You're violating local realism. You're exceeding the speed of light, which we call c. And if we look at Einstein's E equals mc squared, pushing any mass to that speed, let alone beyond it, requires infinite energy. It's physically impossible to just slide back and forth like that.
Okay, but the source notes some cosmic workarounds, right?
Yeah.
Like, theoretically, the math of relativity allows for anomalies.
Yes, theoretically. We're talking about an Einstein-Rosen bridge, a wormhole.
Right. Folding space like a piece of paper and poking a pencil through it.
Precisely. The equations permit you to fold the fabric of space-time so that those two coordinates share a boundary. You aren't traveling through the space, you are stepping across a fold. The other workaround is quantum entanglement, where particles communicate instantly over vast distances, but that's more about information than physical travel.
Let's stick with the macroscopic loophole, the wormhole. Let's say we take it. We step through, bypass the speed limit, and we arrive at the star 1,000 years before the supernova we already saw from Earth. What happens if we, shoot a massive laser at it and artificially destroy the star right then and there?
Then you've arrived at the grandfather paradox, just scaled up to astrophysics.
Because I killed the star before it could die naturally.
Right. If you destroy the star prematurely, the specific supernova event you originally witnessed through Telescope X never occurs. And if it never occurs, the photons never reach Earth, You never observe the collapse, and you never have the motivation to step through the wormhole to destroy it in the first place.
It's a complete logical loop. It breaks causality entirely.
It does. It shatters it.
Which implies to me, and to the sources we're looking at, that our entire framework for viewing this is flawed. The paradox only exists because we treat time as this immutable sequence, and we treat the observer as this tiny, localized human looking through a tube. So I want to pivot the analogy.
Let's do it.
Let's discard Telescope X entirely. What if the observer isn't a human? What if the observer is a massive, localized consciousness, like a giant cosmic eye?
Oh, this completely changes the physics. Scale changes everything.
Exactly. I mean, we build things like the James Webb Space Telescope to be huge, specifically to increase the collection area, a bigger eye to capture more light. But push that to the absolute limit. Imagine an eye, an observer, whose physical size spans the entire galaxy.
Okay, so a truly massive observer.
Right. To an observer of that scale, a distance of 100,000 light years isn't some vast, unimaginable gulf. It's nothing. It's the equivalent of a speck of dust on a human cornea. If distance shrinks to virtually zero relative to the size of the eye, then the time it takes light to cross that distance also shrinks to zero.
You're touching on simultaneity here. For an observer of that galactic proportion, the concept of look-back time vanishes.
The delay is gone.
Exactly. The emission of the light from the dying star and the reception of that light by the cosmic eye happen in the same localized system. So for a truly massive cosmic eye, past and present happen in a single absolute now.
The birth of the star, its life, its death, all happening at once.
Yes. The universe is essentially just looking at itself. It forces a block universe perspective where past, present, and future are just a static, immutable structure. The universe isn't a timeline, it's a shape.
A shape. Wow. Okay, that is the perfect transition. Because if inflating the eye to a cosmic scale collapses time into a single point of now, we have to ask what happens if we do the exact opposite.
Reversing the lens.
Right. What if we look through an infinitely small eye? A quantum microscope. We abandon deep space and drop down to a single atom.
The dynamics completely invert. In the macro world, our world, 1 second is a tiny, fleeting moment. But if you scale down to the size of a hydrogen atom, that 1 second is an eternity.
Because the electron is spinning at near light speed, right?
Yes.
No.
The interactions at that scale happen in fractions of a fraction of a millisecond. So to an electron or an observer at that scale, a single human second is the equivalent of millions of epochs. Time wildly dilates.
That expands.
It expands almost infinitely. But here is where the mechanics of observation get genuinely weird. When you try to isolate that electron in time, when you look through the microscope to see exactly where it is right now, you hit a wall.
Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
Exactly. You cannot pin down the electron in time and space simultaneously. It doesn't exist as a neat little planet orbiting a sun. It exists as a probability cloud. It is literally everywhere it could possibly be all at once.
So wait. With the giant telescope eye, immense space shrunk into zero time. Everything happened at once. But with the microscopic eye, a fraction of a second expands so violently that time literally freezes and turns into physical geometry. It turns into a cloud shape.
Time ceases to be temporal and becomes spatial.
Which is just deeply absurd if you think about it. I mean, if a big eye makes time shrink to nothing and a small eye makes time expand into a physical shape, then time and space aren't real foundational pillars of reality at all.
They're emergent properties.
They're cheap magic tricks. It completely depends on who is watching this show. The hardware of the observer dictates the flow of time.
And that leads perfectly into how living beings actually experience this magic trick. It's not just about theoretical physics and giant or tiny eyes. It's about biology. It's about consciousness and psychological time.
Right, because we are the rendering engines for this illusion. Let's look at the biological extreme here on Earth, the mayfly.
A classic example.
The adult mayfly lives for exactly 1 day, 24 hours. From our perspective, we pity it. We think, oh man, what a tragedy. It's just this frantic rush to mate and die before the clock runs out.
But that's purely us projecting our own neurological refresh rate onto an insect.
Exactly. The mayfly's heart is beating hundreds of times a minute. Its optical hardware is processing light and environmental data at incredible speeds compared to us.
We process visual data at maybe 60 frames per second. Flies process it at hundreds of frames per second.
So to a mayfly, if I tried to swat it with my hand, I look like I'm moving in slow motion. on moving through molasses. Because it's sampling the environment so densely, its subjective present moment is incredibly rich and elongated. It lives a full, rich lifetime in 24 hours.
It experiences an entire epoch in a day.
And what blows my mind is that the source material points out ancient texts already knew this. The Hindu cosmic scale maps this biological relativity perfectly.
The concept of the divas.
Yes. The texts state that one human year is equivalent to just 24 hours for a diva, a celestial being. So if you live a full 100-year human life, from birth to old age and death, that entire span passes in just 3 or 4 hours on a diva's afternoon.
Relative to the diva, we are the mayflies.
We're the ones buzzing around frantically while they operate on this vastly slower, expansive metabolic rhythm. But we don't even have to look at insects or ancient gods to prove this. We experience it ourselves.
Every single day, it's the variable rate of memory encoding.
The famous Einstein hot stove analogy. The quote goes, "You sit with a beautiful woman for 2 hours and it feels like 2 minutes. But you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes and it feels like 2 hours."
It's a great joke, but the neuroscience behind it is absolutely concrete.
Walk me through the biology of that. What happens on the hot stove?
Well, when you sit on a hot stove or experience any intense danger, your brain goes into an acute stress response. The amygdala, which is your threat detection center, flares up. It floods your system with adrenaline.
Fight or flight.
Right. And to help you survive, your brain suddenly needs hypergranular data. It starts recording massive amounts of high-density information, the exact temperature, the smell of the air, the micro movements of everything around you. The sampling rate skyrockets.
So it's basically hitting the save button 10 times as fast.
Exactly. And because your brain equates the sheer volume of data recorded with the passage of time, when you look back at that memory, it feels incredibly long. The data overload stretches time out.
2 minutes turns into 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about the beautiful woman? What about moments of joy?
In a state of joy, you're safe. Dopamine flows through the system, and dopamine essentially tells your brain, hey, we're good here. No need to record all the granular details. The brain stops logging unnecessary data.
The hard drive spins down.
Yes, and because so few frames are recorded when you reflect on those 2 hours, the archive is relatively empty. So your brain concludes hardly any time passed at all. Time literally vanishes.
But wait, if time is just a downstream psychological effect of how our brain records data, that introduces a massive loophole. If I can consciously control the sampling rate of my own brain, don't I control time itself?
You're talking about modulating your own temporal rendering.
Right. The tests refer to this as manovegam, travel by mind speed. If my mind dictates time, can't I travel anywhere instantly? Like if I close my eyes and vividly think of that star 100,000 light years away, my mind just got there in 0 seconds.
Well, it's a profound pivot. Because if space and time are just user interfaces generated by the brain, then your consciousness isn't actually moving through physical space to get to the star.
It's just shifting its focal point.
Exactly. It's shifting focus within that static block universe we mentioned earlier. And the people who seem to have mapped this out most rigorously are not modern physicists, but yogis.
Practitioners of deep meditation.
Yeah.
The sources talk about them mastering this internal time dilation.
Through states of profound sensory withdrawal.
Right. Because what is actually happening in a yogi's brain when they sit in a cave for 10 years, but they wake up feeling like it's been 10 minutes?
They are actively suppressing the brain's default mode network. They slow their brain waves down drastically, moving from the busy beta waves of normal waking life down into alpha, theta, and finally into deep delta waves.
Which we normally only hit in deep, dreamless sleep. But they are completely conscious.
They are conscious, but they are receiving zero external sensory data, no visual input, no physical sensation. The hippocampus stops recording new environmental episodes entirely.
The recording light turns off.
Exactly. And if no new information is recorded, the subjective progression of time halts. 10 years pass in objective chronological time, but to the yogi's internal rendering engine, no time has passed at all.
They've hacked the hardware. And the cosmological texts scale this yogic state up to the ultimate absolute. They talk about the eye of Brahma.
Brahma, the creator consciousness in the Hindu tradition.
The metrics for Brahma's time are just staggering. According to the ancient texts, one Mahayuga, which is roughly 4.32 million human years, is just a microscopic fraction of Brahma's day.
Yes, to equal exactly 24 hours for Brahma, you need 8.64 billion human years.
8.64 billion. I mean, the Earth is only like 4.5 billion years old. Our entire planet's history is just half a day for this consciousness.
But the crucial part of the source text isn't just the large numbers, it's why the timescale's that way. If we apply the mechanics of the cosmic eye, Brahma's eye is the size of the entire universe.
Because his consciousness is infinite.
Right. And because it's infinite, the entire life cycle of the universe, from the Big Bang to the cosmic crunch, happens simultaneously in a single glance. There is no sequential propagation of information. Brahma sees space, not time.
It's the ultimate block universe observer. Everything is just one big map, and he sees the whole map at once. And the text connects this to ancient sages using specific powers, right? Like Anima, the power to shrink to atomic size, and Mahima, the power to expand to cosmic size.
They were modulating their conscious focal length to bypass the physical body entirely. They traveled purely as consciousness, completely outside of time.
Which is mind-blowing. But I want to pose a profound pivot here. We keep looking outward, right? We look at massive stars with telescopes. We look at cosmic eyes. We look at gods like Brahma to find timelessness.
We look at the macro.
Yes. But what if we look inward? I mean, we all started as something microscopic. Does a human sperm cell experience time?
Oh, this brings the cosmic scale right into human biology. The origin of life. The unfertilized biological seed.
Exactly. Think about a single sperm or egg cell just sitting there in isolation. Does time exist for it? Because you'd assume, being biological matter, it's subject to aging and entropy. It's ticking away on a clock.
But according to the deep biology, it isn't. Inside that isolated cell, the aging process is fundamentally suspended. Time literally does not exist yet.
Wait, really? How is that possible? Everything ages.
It comes down to the DNA. Inside the nucleus of that cell, the DNA is undergoing extreme chromatin condensation. The strands are tightly coiled and folded in on themselves over and over in a state of absolute suspended animation.
It's packed so tight it can't do anything.
It is biochemically inert. The cellular machinery can't access it to transcribe anything. It's not metabolizing.
And we know this is true because of modern science, cryopreservation.
Exactly. We drop these cells into liquid nitrogen at minus 196 degrees Celsius.
And we freeze them for decades. You can freeze an egg, wait 20 years, thaw it out, and it hasn't aged a single second. The universe moved forward, but that specific point of biology completely bypassed time.
The thermodynamic arrow of time halts for that cell.
But this introduces a crazy paradox in the source text, the information layer of time. If the sperm cell has no present moment because it's suspended, what is it made of?
It is entirely made of the past and the future.
Walk me through that. How is a microscopic cell made of the past?
The 23 chromosomes inside it are an unbroken archive of survival data stretching back billions of years. Every evolutionary adaptation, every ancestor's immunological triumph, millions of years of human data, all compressed into that specific geometry. It is the ultimate past.
And the future.
Assuming fertilization, that exact molecular sequence contains the entire blueprint of the child's life. Bone structure, neurochemistry, potential lifespan. The whole future trajectory is pre-folded into that microscopic point.
So the past and the future are squeezed together so tightly there's no room for a present. It is outside of time. And the yogic sciences, things like Kundalini and Svara Yoga, they focus entirely on this.
They do. When a yogi channels their energy, their prana, backward inward instead of outward into the senses, they retreat to this original cosmic seed, the bindu.
The causal body. And the source text describes what they see when they shrink their consciousness down to that exact point. And it's terrifying.
They call it Chitakasha, a primordial void, an infinite, silent, terrifying darkness.
Because if you strip away all sensory organs, there's no light, no sound, just absolute zero-dimensional darkness. But deep inside that darkness, the yogi experiences a sudden explosion.
Paramjyoti, a self-luminous light.
The text says it's like 1,000 suns exploding all at once. The darkness and the light are one and the same at that point of infinite density.
The parallels are just undeniable here.
Right. Think about what we are describing. A tiny point of infinite density, no space, no time, packed with the complete blueprint of a reality that suddenly explodes into unimaginable light and creates a completely new world. We're not describing biology anymore.
No, we aren't.
You were describing the Big Bang.
We're talking about the biological singularity. This is where the deep dive hits its most mind-bending climax. The direct mapping of human creation to cosmic creation.
So 13.8 billion years ago, the universe was an infinitesimally small point of infinite density. No time, no space. The cosmic singularity.
And the micro Big Bang is the nucleus of the human seed, our biological singularity. As is the macrocosm, so is the microcosm.
As in the universe, so in the body. I love that. So if the dormant cell is the singularity, what is the trigger? What is the actual Big Bang moment?
The exact millisecond of fertilization, the moment the sperm breaches the egg.
What happens biologically in that split second?
It is a violent cascade. The moment of fusion creates a literal electrical spark, a wave of calcium ions. And that spark shatters the suspended animation. The DNA uncoils. The blueprint unzips.
And time is born. The biological clock literally starts ticking.
Time is born, and then the expansion begins. Cell division. 1 becomes 2, 2 become 4, then 8, 16.
It's the exponential geometric expansion of our own personal universe.
Yeah.
Mitosis is cosmic inflation. That is incredible. Okay, but I have to ask, if the birth of a human is a miniature Big Bang, can we use this biological mirror to solve mysteries in outer space? Things astrophysicists are stuck on right now.
The source synthesis actually does this. It uses this biological framework to answer 3 of modern science's greatest unsolved mysteries.
Okay, let's test it. Mystery number 1, dark energy. What is it, and how does biology solve it?
Well, astrophysicists know the universe is expanding. But the mystery is that the expansion is accelerating at a terrifying rate. The further away a galaxy is, the faster it's flying away.
Which makes no sense if the Big Bang was just a dead explosion. Gravity should be slowing things down.
Right. So they invented dark energy as a mathematical placeholder, an invisible pressure pushing space apart. But if we look at our biological model, look at a fetus.
Cell division in a fetus accelerates rapidly as the baby grows.
Exactly. The solution proposed here is that the universe isn't a dead vacuum. It is a living organism still growing in a cosmic womb.
Yeah.
The acceleration isn't a dead physical force. It's the life force, the prana, driving biological growth. Dark energy is just the vitality of a growing cosmic baby.
We're inside a growing organism. That completely flips astrophysics on its head.
Okay, mystery number 2, the theory of everything. Physics can't unite relativity, which is the big stuff like gravity and quantum mechanics, the tiny stuff like electrons. Why? Because they treat them as 2 different domains that need to meet in the middle. But the biological Big Bang shows us that the macro world is literally folded inside the micro quantum point.
Just like the adult human is folded inside the microscopic DNA.
Precisely. The macro isn't separate from the micro. It is the epigenetic expression of it. You can't unite them side by side because one is nested entirely within the other.
The universe is a fractal. Okay, the last mystery, and this is the big one. Mystery number 3, the hard problem of consciousness.
The ultimate blind spot of science.
Scientists are completely baffled by how dead atoms inside the human brain suddenly wake up and generate consciousness. How does meat learn to think?
Materialistic science assumes consciousness is an emergent property, that it happens after the brain forms once you stack enough complex neurons together.
But our source material argues the exact opposite, doesn't it?
It demands an inversion. Consciousness didn't happen after the biological Big Bang. It was there before it. The dormant DNA is software containing potential consciousness, just waiting to be unpacked.
So the brain doesn't create consciousness.
No. The brain is just an antenna, a highly evolved biological tuning mechanism designed to decode a field of consciousness that already exists fundamentally in the universe.
So if consciousness predates the Big Bang and predates time itself, how can we possibly comprehend it? Every time I try to wrap my head around being outside of time, my brain just short circuits.
And that short circuit is exactly the fatal flaw of the human mind that the texts warn about.
Our mind is built entirely on linear time and space.
It is. It requires a beginning, an end, and comparison to function at all. It needs a past and a future to exist. So when you ask a question like, when did consciousness begin? The question itself is structurally flawed.
You cannot use a tool bound by time, like the human intellect, to measure something that exists outside of time.
Exactly. Which is why the ancient practitioners aimed for the no-mind state. Amanaska or nirvikalpa samadhi.
Where you just stop thinking.
It's not just stopping thoughts. In that state, the ego, the questioner, and the answer all dissolve into one pure existence. The boundary between observer and observed collapses.
And what's wild is that modern physics agrees. The text points out that in equations attempting to map the origin of the universe, time completely vanishes.
Yes, the Wheeler-DeWitt equation is a perfect example. When physicists try to mathematically describe the quantum state of the entire universe, the variable for time simply drops out of the equation.
Science itself hits the exact same wall where time becomes an illusion. Physics and mysticism arriving at the exact same conclusion.
They are digging from opposite sides of the mountain and meeting perfectly in the middle.
It is absolutely staggering. And I want to provide a stunning analogy from the text to leave the listener with today to kind of visualize this limitation of our minds.
The candle and the sun.
Yes. Imagine trying to use your intellect to understand the timeless origin of the universe. It is like taking a tiny, fragile wax candle and holding it up to explore the sun.
It's completely futile.
Long before you can even get close enough to study the sun, the immense heat and power of it melts the wax away into nothing. The candle cannot understand the sun. It can only be consumed by it. Our localized minds just melt away when faced with the infinite.
The observer has to dissolve for the reality to be experienced.
So, for everyone listening, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The next time you look at a clock on the wall and you hear that sharp little clack of the second hand, I want you to pause. Wonder for a second. Are you a fragile little thing existing inside the vast, unstoppable flow of time? Or is time just existing inside you?